Hello, this is a response to integral math. My subscribers probably haven't been following our debate, so I'd recommend going and watching the two videos this is a response to first. I cut a lot of things I wanted to say to try to keep the video at a reasonable length, so if I have to do some more videos to re-explain some things that might happen. Also, I haven't reconfigured video stuff since I reinstalled my operating system, so I'm attempting to do this with the crappy instant upload YouTube thing. That's why the quality is all weird. First, let's clarify exactly what my position is. I am always very supportive when students run into difficulty. I never ever tell them what they are doing is easy. This is probably equally as bad as telling them what they are about to do is difficult. I do math all day, every day, so I know exactly what it feels like to be confused and stuck. I have a lot of empathy and try to show this to my students. I think this is a very good idea. What I am saying is that you should never do this by saying something is difficult, especially if they haven't run into problems yet. There are ways to do this without using the words hard or difficult. As I've said, if a student runs into a problem or wall and then asks you, there is no problem at this point in agreeing with them that it is hard. They've come to that conclusion on their own. Why is it necessary to preempt this and tell all your students that it will be difficult without knowing whether it will be or not for them? Somehow, you seem to be confusing the idea of not telling a student something is difficult with the idea of telling them that it is easy. I've explained now in the comments what I intended to do, and I've explained over and over that this is not my position. So I'm sorry that it came across that way, but you're definitely pulling things into this debate that shouldn't be there. Now on to the actual content. Let's do a brief thought experiment. I'd love to see this experiment done in the future in real life, but I've searched and I can't find if it actually has been or not. Suppose you have two groups of people and you give them the exact same material to learn. It could be in any subject. One group has it subtly indicated to them that the task is difficult, while the other group has been given no indication at all about the difficulty of the task. In fact, we may as well make the task very easy to learn. Since the task is easy, the group that has been told nothing will find it easy, having no preconceived notions, and they will succeed at a very high rate. Now here's where we disagree. Can you honestly say that you think the group that has been told it is difficult will do the same or better than the other group? I really want to know. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the group told the task is difficult will do significantly worse. The idea behind this is simple. You've given them a preconceived notion about the difficulty, and having nothing else to go on, you are the teacher after all, they will believe you. This is what I'm worried about. There are many ways I can foresee this coming up throughout the semester. For one, suppose a student is doing their homework and they run into a wall. If you had said nothing, maybe they'd try a little harder for a little longer and they'd break through it on their own. But you are the teacher and you've said the class is hard, so what is more likely is that they will have a subconscious reaction that the class is hard and they won't be able to solve the problem. This will cause them to give up even though they could have done it on their own. Now I'd like to share a quick anecdote, even though it's a little bit embarrassing. I've tutored linear algebra and I've actually taught a full course on it at my university. So despite the fact that I have understanding of what the Gram-Schmidt algorithm is and I can confidently explain it to my students, every time this comes up, I get a bit of anxiety. It is completely irrational, but it was also the one thing my linear algebra professor described as complicated and difficult. Despite the fact that it is easy for me now, the description of this algorithm as difficult still is the first thing that jumps to mind, and it causes me some anxiety. Think about what would happen if I didn't know that it was a simple process. I would panic and not be able to figure it out. Saying something is difficult to people trying to learn a subject creates a block. To end, I'd like to point out one huge bit of irony in your last video. You pointed out that lots of people fail at math classes every year as if this were some sort of justification that math classes are indeed hard. I'm going to ignore the fact that almost everyone that fails my classes, at least the classes that come after calculus, they fail because they don't come to class or they don't do the homework or both. You know, there's lots of other issues going on. They could have family crisis, they could have a particularly stressful semester and they let one of their classes slide so that they can do well in the other classes. So it really has nothing, I mean, you cannot take this as evidence of anything. So let's ignore the obvious faulty logic to point out the irony in the statement. You think that people failing at math is evidence that it is hard, but I think it's exactly the opposite. People fail at math precisely because they are told that it is hard. It is a failing of our culture that we indoctrinate children to think that math is a hard and scary subject. Keith Devlin wrote an entire book arguing this point called The Math Gene. It is a great book, and he argues that all people have a natural ability for math, and it is actually our culture that gives people a block when attempting math. So the irony is that in order to illustrate your own point that math is indeed hard, you've actually perfectly illustrated my own point. The reason that people fail their math classes isn't because they are hard, but because we tell them that they are hard. Okay, so this was long. Let me just summarize quickly. It is basically undeniable that telling people something is difficult before they even try it will cause quite a bit of harm in learning for a large group of people in your class. For the people that it might help, there are better ways to motivate them than to tell them outright that the material is hard. You never have to mention the supposed difficulty. Lastly, just because you don't tell them ahead of time that you think what you think the difficulty is doesn't mean you can't empathize with them when they run into trouble, which seems to be your main issue with what I'm saying. So removing that word from your class will not hurt anyone, but it will almost certainly help a lot of people. I'm pretty sure you've already made up your mind about this, and so the whole discussion was pointless, but as someone that cares about good teaching practices, yes, even as a grad student that you like to make fun of our teaching, I do care. I urge you to reconsider that you may have been mistaken. So thanks. I can't wait to see what you have to say about this.